Hey, What's Your Self Talk? Jabari is here from What's Your Self Talk podcast. And listen, I want you to download Anchor right now. Because chances are you're listening to this and you're saying, I got some things I want to share. I have some things that I've wanted to put in a podcast form. Here's the opportunity. Anchor is free. You can do it from your phone and you can be on all the different podcast stations all in one app. Okay. So what I need you to do is stop waiting. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Analysis paralysis. Do it now. You'll thank me later. What's your self-talk? What's your self-talk? This is Jabari here, your host, and I'm excited about today's episode. I have my lovely bride with me, Shania. Hey, pretty lady.
Yeah.
And so this is the second episode of What's Your Self-Talk, and today I am just going to tap into the mindset of, you want to say the title?
Poverty mindset.
Poverty mindset, and how to break the poverty mindset. And for me and my wife, we have different, but I think somewhat similar upbringings, but just as this conversation has come up a lot just with me and my wife, we will sit around and we'll talk. And for those of you who may not know, we have the honor to have a growing real estate business. And so as we have constantly acquired more properties and constantly overseeing the operation sides and what to do and how to do it and asking the right questions, well, it's a lot of different thinking habits we had to break through. And as you know, What's Your Self-Talk is just constantly asking yourself the right questions so that you can move forward and just get a better grips of how to just pull out your best potential. So just in this episode is just, we're going to just talk about how to break that mindset. So I think it starts with upbringing. So me, specifically, parents was both divorced, and we live paycheck to paycheck for the most part. If if we didn't live paycheck to paycheck, we basically maybe didn't even have a paycheck coming in. So, but all that to say is, and I think with that, just as a kid, me personally, when I viewed that, it made me realize a couple of things that, obviously money is an important factor as you grow up. But two, it really starts shifting my mind and saying, okay, I need to do something. And just kind of real quickly moving through it, I eventually started thinking about me playing sports, because only reason I wanted to play sports was because that I wanted to actually make it to the NFL. One reason I wanted to make it to the NFL because I was able to see how other people was able to take care of their moms and their family. And so that was kind of my upbringing. And part of that I do think have to do with a minority. It's just coming up and seeing that was maybe just the only way to make it. But so with me, my upbringing, that was kind of just a quick glimpse of it. But what I learned about myself is that was something I had to break, and I'll go over that here in a minute. But when I think about my pretty lady, just when you think about your upbringings and what was some of the things that you think back looking at now when it comes to how would you build that mindset, something that now obviously you had to break and constantly are breaking through.
So, I guess you go two different ways. Like, people either do the same pattern as what they saw, or you got some kids that decide early on, I believe, that they're not going to go the same route as what they are around. So, for us, it was for me, my mom and I had a stepdad. They pretty much, they had pretty good jobs. My mom had always worked in factory, and she's always had a job, never not had a job. And she always made pretty good, decent money. But I think just the lack of financial education was the downfall for her, not the lack of money, just the decisions that she made with her money. And it's just evidence of nobody ever taught her how to use her money properly or how to budget. It was just pay your bills first, and whatever's left, you can do whatever you want as long as your bills are paid. So that's kind of the household I grew up in. So that, along with that type of financial dealing, I guess the way she handled her financials, sometimes it did bring hardships, just because it was just something else was important, or the money was just misused. I don't think it was the lack of money, it was just the way money was used, which would put us in a hard situation. I wouldn't say it was hard times, but just hard situations in different points throughout my childhood. And so and of course you do, growing up, you do take some of those habits, but I always just knew that I would, when I grew up, living paycheck to paycheck is not acceptable. I didn't want to do that because it was not. It's a lot of things that you couldn't do as a kid because there was no money to go do extracurricular activities at some point. So that, from what I took, is just I got to do something different, and it's something that's better than living paycheck to paycheck.
So it's funny. So think about upbringings. I had another question. Did you see somebody try to help just teach you anything about budgeting, or just whether it's balance the checkbook? Because I'm thinking about when you were talking, I remember my aunt took me to the bank and she showed me, she wrote a check and she showed me how to record it in a transaction book. And just real simple, small things. But when I think back, that was probably the most education I had at that time.
So yeah, my aunt, the same thing until this day. I seen her how to, she write a check and record to know the exact balance she had, because you write a check don't mean it's going to clear the same day that you use that check. So you got to know your real balance and not looking online and seeing that balance, because most of the time it's pending stuff. And so I know how to write it. So like I said, my aunt, the little budgeting skills that I acquired was from my aunt, just seeing her writing checks and recording her transactions after she wrote the check at the grocery store, from just going to the grocery store and see how she used coupons, that she looked to see who had the best deal before she went out and shopped, and made a list of. So she budgeted her money to where she knew what was going in and what was coming out. It wasn't like a mystery. And just using, she was using coupons before. I think it was a big deal to use coupons and going to stores where you get double points for a coupon. But yeah, and then I remember just shopping.
She was on a show for coupon savers.
And then just shopping. I remember shopping at it was a form of Goodwill, it was secondhand. It was called Value Village. We used to go, and how I would find good stuff there. All we did was, it was clothes, but we washed them. But my thing is, we didn't have, I had clothes. We didn't have to shop at the mall. But she just showed you, you can get stuff, you get more. And pretty much she told me, I can take you to the mall, you can get a half a shoe, or you can go to the Value Village and get 5 pairs of shoes for $5. But yeah, that's my only form of financial education as a little kid or growing up.
Yeah. So, and just as you were talking about that, and I just think about it was pretty much, that was it. That was the education that we had. So we just lived off that. So me and you met in college.
Yeah.
And we met in college. She was, I was drooling over her. But when we eventually was about to get married, I had to really start getting into a rhythm of okay, what does it look like to be married? What does that look like? What are the things I need to do? And so I had no experience. And it's when you don't have that, when you don't have that many people who've talked to you about it, you have nobody to go to talk about Like, hey, what am I supposed to
You
do?
don't know who to go to.
Right, you don't know.
You don't know half. You probably did, but you didn't know who to go to.
Correct. So I didn't know who to talk to at that time, and I mean, and I think that's.
Questions to ask. You know this.
I'm sorry.
Or what questions to ask because you never had to.
Right, you just didn't know where to start. I mean, like naturally, when you think you're about to get married, it's nobody gonna say, "Okay, I'm gonna pay for this, or I'm gonna pay for that." Like that never came up.
Situations people do get. I mean, they parents.
I'm talking about mine though.
Yeah,
I understand.
We pay for our own wedding.
Yes, so I'm talking about ours. So our situation was, we had to save up. I actually some of the school money I actually saved up was help us to be able to pay for our wedding.
Good old Pell Grant.
Yes, thank you.
FAFSA. It's
FAFSA. And then, but also, it was just, I had a part-time job. We both played sports, and I graduated first, and so I was able to work. And then Shania was still playing, and we just really combined our efforts as far as like understanding, like, okay, we need to be able to save for this, we need to be able to do that, and so it was, we were just trying to find ways to just survive and just to make sure that we weren't, going to make the same decisions. Now, what do you think the turning point for us when it came to, all right, we know what we grew up with, which we just talked about.
Mm-hmm. And just know that I got an accounting degree, and they do not teach you financial education with an accounting degree.
So you telling me I got a finance degree, you have an accounting degree. Mm-hmm. They didn't teach us anything about finance?
They did not teach you.
About budgeting?
Nothing.
Okay.
Well, not at Arkansas State.
Okay, well.
I guess I should name names, but not where we went to school at. They did not teach you how to budget your money, even though people assume that I have an accounting degree that I know how to budget. Like, naturally, like anybody with accounting, you just like, oh yeah, they know. They've been taught how to budget their money.
All right.
They teach you about the balance sheet, the income statement, stuff like that.
So I think that's so you bring up a good point. I think that's what makes it even more kind of crazy. You both were business majors. You was accounting.
Financial majors.
Financial majors at that. I was finance with an emphasis in banking, and you were a double major. So you was accounting and business admin. So I think even you can obtain these degrees, which we have, and still have that same mindset.
Or still have financial literacy.
Yes. So in that case, that was us. And I think it was just a few years down the line we really started to ask ourselves, like, all right, we want to get to another thing that we want. We want to have something more. We went in debt. We were just like, we had our budget figured out, and years passing by, and we were just like, okay, but what do we have to show? We wanted to start.
How did you get your budget?
How did I get my budget?
What did you start off using?
Oh, Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
Oh, that was it. Miss Dave. Dave was the guy that kept me and Shania out of any type of debt the first 4-5 years of our marriage.
Yeah, we didn't even. Yeah.
I think all we had was a house.
Yeah.
And a car, maybe, I think.
No, the car was paid.
A car, no, you're right. The car was paid off. So yeah, we had that, but it was doing that, and we didn't really have student loans. We
didn't have any student loans.
Yeah,
we didn't have any.
You're right. We didn't have no student loans. Excuse me. So we didn't have any student loans.
Full-ride scholarship.
Right. So we did not have no student debt, and so we entered the whole Dave Ramsey mindset, trying to get out of that. Well, we was never in debt to get out of.
We were just learning how to budget.
Budget, right?
Dave Ramsey to learn how to budget, to learn how to save 6 emergency fund.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And just know it.
Just educating ourselves, what it even looked like.
We didn't know how to budget, so that's what we used that tool mainly to budget because we didn't have any debt to roll up. And we learned principles that apply to today, the debt snowball. That applies still today. You tackle those small debt, and then whatever that's left, whenever you pay that off, you add it to the next thing.
Right.
You learn a lot of stuff from Dave Ramsey as far as, especially budgeting. And we did the whole envelope system where we spent nothing but cash. We didn't swipe.
Right.
Just doing that budget at the beginning of the month, so like you couldn't throw in something later on in the month. I'm like, oh, I need to do this. It was no go.
Right.
There was no flexibility.
Discipline. So discipline. Only building a
Do that
budget and
and
discipline.
saving up to buy a house as well. So
Gotcha. So what do you think really shift? Like what in your mind have changed our perspective? Okay, now we are doing this upbringing. We got our degrees and we have our degrees, and now we still need to educate ourselves on how to actually do the basic necessities of budgeting and discipline our spending. And so from there, we now are implementing the Dave Ramsey principles and living out that. Like, I'm curious to know from your perspective, what do you think changed for us that we wanted to start, kind of changing directions with what we were doing, kind of on the financial?
obviously, neither one of us was going professional and earning a whole lot of money. So, and I don't know. I just feel like, for me, I've always known that. I'm not trying to live paycheck to paycheck, and I'm also not trying to be the richest person in the world. But I also don't want to. I also want to have the ability to go buy something without thinking about it. In a sense,
I wanted to be rich. I'm not gonna lie to you.
No, I'm not saying I didn't say I didn't want to be rich. I said I'm not set out to be the richest person in the world.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to. Yeah, I want to acquire wealth for sure. But I was just you talking about the turning point though. For me, it's just the fact that like I don't know. I just knew it was more than. For me, it was just like I knew it was more than just going to work every day and making somebody else rich. Like I knew that I had to work for a little bit to, the jobs that I took to learn pretty much how to be rich. Or just get the habits of people I knew that had money. Mm-hmm. So just seeing what they do and just repeating what they do. So, I worked at the bank. And that was just seeing different types of walks of life. It was kind of eye-opening just to see how on the 1st and the 3rd of the month, the banks is crazy with people and their whatever, and their checks and all that. And then I went to work somewhere else, and she does well for herself. So I'm like, why do I need to do well for myself? So the things things that they did, but I just knew it was more to it. And I wanted to live a life to where I didn't have to, if I purchased this, like something else wasn't going to get paid. Like I couldn't go live a life to where I had to wait to do stuff. Like I got to wait 50 years to work at a job, 50 years and then retire would probably, who knows. But I didn't want to work for 50 years for somebody else, make them rich, and then only got like 20 and try to go live my best life at the age of 60 years. Like that didn't sit well with me. So I was like, there's got to be a way to get out of that kind of rat race of like just so that was the turning point for me.
Okay, and as she wears the freedom and health is the new wealth shirt, shout out if you want to be able to join that. But I think for me, it was, we was having conversation and you was giving me your feedback, but then also I had a mentor that was always in my ear since day one, about, specifically looking into a certain field, being real estate. And I didn't understand it much. I remember, one of the first books he had told me to go out and read. I read it. It was complete. It was everything against what Dave Ramsey said.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. And I was just like, that book was that book was sinful. It was
because you just don't, until you know what, I guess it'll be for another episode, but like until you know, when you read that book, until you know like what is good debt and what is bad debt, because we are taught that all debt is bad. Mm-hmm. And all that is not.
Oh, you get into a whole new episode. Yeah. So we'll explore that more next time.
Anyway.
But just the knowledge and the information, like if your mind is not prepared,
right, and it's a whole mindset shift.
Correct.
It's a mindset shift.
Mm-hmm. And that was so
just to even get like what it just to even have that thought of like I can do much more. I can do more and I can do better. Because I've always had the philosophy like, you can you can make a change in the world. You don't have to have money to make a change, but I feel like if you want to make lasting, significant change, you gotta have money.
Right. So, yes. So what happened for me was, he was telling me to read this book, and at the very, very beginning of my marriage, I was like, this ain't working. Like, I ain't trying to hear nothing else you trying to say. So as those years passed, and we would start having more conversations about what you're talking about, and not only one that I opened up that book again, but I also
Google. I ain't gonna lie about it. I Google like, how do people get rich?
Right.
Specifically black people, and then I've come up and I came across where it was like most black rich people obtain wealth, and I'm not trying to get rich. I'm trying to get wealthy to change.
What's the difference?
I mean, wealth is like okay. So wealth is like my money will like my grandkids, my son's grandkids, generations get like is equivalent to like Walmart money. Like ain't nobody gonna work for a long time. But like generations after me
right.
can have a choice, not even a choice to work, but just a choice to, if they want to go to work, or they can have a choice to take over the business, and
right. They can focus on value and bringing and growing something instead of having to work just to provide paycheck to paycheck. Correct. Like you was brought up.
So I looked it up, and it was just like most black wealthy people obtain their wealth in real estate. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. Real estate, owning land.
And I remember
they don't make land no more. So owning land is what I looked up. So I was like, oh, we probably need to do some real estate. And then that's when I don't know if I had said that before. I was waiting for you to hop on the bandwagon.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess in the background, that's what she was all doing, and then she brought that to my attention, and we was already kind of having financial talks, and we wanted to start a family, and I remember at that time when she told me that I was I was in a sales job, and I've been in my sales job for long enough, and I had a 401k, and I'm like, but my 401k I wasn't doing much with it, and so. It was at that point, I'm like, all right. So I kind of turned back to my mentor. I was like, hey, what's that book again? I read that book. So I opened up my mind to like different ways of living and being able to build wealth for your family. And, the specific knowledge that I need. And one of the first things I did after reading that book, it was like, you have to educate yourself. You have to be able to understand and have your own personal conviction. And that was interesting to me because, I've always understood the meaning of reading, and I was successful through my sales career at that point. And I understood like, okay, now you got to read twice as much to get that financial literacy that you needed, but also understanding like everything that you've learned probably about the whole Dave Ramsey, like almost all of it, not all of it, but almost all of it, you have to throw it out the window as far as the mindset and everything that go with that. So as I started reading these books, and one specifically that really, really changed my mindset and really just got me to start taking action was the Cash Flow Quadrant by Rich Dad Poor Dad. And, he was explaining the difference of people in different quadrants, being an employee, self-employed, business, and the investment. And it was just mind-blowing to me, like just the different mindset that each one of those people had. And when you realize like, okay, this is the quadrant I'm in. I'm like, I'm on the left side. I want to go to the right. I want to build the business. I want to be in the investment side. So it was not only one having that desire to wanted to change, but now that curiosity shifted me to start educating myself in a different way so that me and my wife can start building up wealth for ourselves, which led us to not only one giving me the confidence to start looking at our first real estate deal, but now, and just constantly doing the things that we were implementing and going from there. So educating ourselves was, I think, the main key. After we had the curiosity, after we had the want and desire to have more and do more, and to be able to experience freedom And that's what I wanted for myself. I was busting my butt selling, but I didn't have really much to show for it after a while. So then after educating yourself, then going out and acting on the information. And so that's what I'm going to talk about next is as we now are educating ourselves, understanding, okay, or we wanted to be in real estate and, we're reading these books and now it's time to act. It's time to do the things that you're reading about. That was, for me, I know I was like fear was creeping up because the last thing you want to do is make a mistake, or the last thing you want to do is go out there and, ruin your life and just tons of just uncertain, like, somebody gonna call me in the middle of the night to fix a toilet, or I don't know how to do these certain jobs or whatever. Just like you really understand how fear can consume you at that time. And so when I seen that, I was understanding like you have to push through those fears. Like they don't disappear, but you still have to push through them. So, Shania, when you think about the actually personal experiences you had, now that you know what you need to do, you're reading the books, and as you started to push forward and figuring out, okay, how do we act on this goal that we put together? How was that experience for you? How would you give your own personal example to that?
But just taking the next step of...
Just taking the next step when you say, okay, I'm reading all this information and I understand what I need to do. So how was that for you, like going in and saying, all right, well, this is what we need to do? So did you have any fear that creeped up inside of you? Did you have anything that hesitated you wanting to do it, or you already knew why you should do it? Like, what was your thinking?
Really, I had more fear, like purchasing our first, like, personal residence because of just the...
Like personal house? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
More fear than... So once we did that, and it was like, okay, that's not... It wasn't... It kind of took that fear down because it was like we're buying something... We were buying a house... It was less than our personal residence. Mm-hmm. And it's... Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't a big deal to me because after I had... Because our personal house purchase was more, and so that was more of like it was more scary to be like, oh, we got this mortgage that we have to pay for, and it wasn't as scary as buying a rental property because it was like, I'm not paying for it, essentially the renter's paying for it. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't, my anxiety was not the purchase in getting the rental property. It was more like, okay, what are the things that comes along with doing this business? So like, okay, there's a worst case scenario. We got to evict somebody, or somebody late on their rent. Well, they may put us in a bind and we late on our mortgage. Like certain that kind of things that come along with it is what I was more nervous about than just actually purchasing the first rental property.
Gotcha. And when we actually, so OPM, other people's money, using other people's money to definitely pay instead of our own money. But one thing that I learned about being in the trenches and purchasing is like having the right people to talk to.
Yes.
So like I remember in our very first property, we thought we were going to have to fork out a whole lot of money, and having people who, when I say have the right people to talk to, is like you realize like it's cool that you want to talk to your family and friends and tell them about what you're doing, but it's even more important to talk to other people who've taken the steps that you're taking and wanting to see you succeed, but they're also doing it for themselves. Like you cannot go talk to somebody else if they've never done it before, or they did it and they quit, and you go take advice from them. Like that makes no sense to me. It's just like when I was playing sports, like I wanted to learn from somebody who played the game and who's giving me advice from a level either higher than me or either whatever, like higher than me. So for me, it was like me knowing who to call and having those buddies like who's doing real estate, or my mentor, or even just going to books and just reading those books again. And that, I think, is what really, really helps you get through those fears. It's not only one acting, but also having the right people to ask you the right question and say like, well, you should quit. But it was like, well, how can we fix this instead of saying, well, you shouldn't did this in the first place. We were like, well, how can we avoid doing this next time? So it was just the shift in that
Not
mindset.
even avoiding it, just how can you learn from it and do it better? Because you're gonna always have somebody to be like, ugh.
Right, but
I was in that and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't deal with the tenants, or I couldn't deal with this. But like, I knew going into it, like, there is a possibility, like, it's a part of it. So I can't be mad because I got to evict somebody. I can't be mad that they late on rent. It's a part of the rental property. Mm-hmm. You're taking on most of the risk when we do buy and hold rental property and have tenants. You're taking on most of the risks, but it's also a reward. Mm-hmm. Because now we have an operating asset that we don't even pay for, that we make money in our sleep. Like, I'm trying to make money in my sleep. That's where everybody else that's rich, they say they make money in their sleep. They don't work for money. Money work for them.
Right.
So I'm like, I take that chance. I take that risk.
So let me be clear on what I was saying is that most of the people, if you get advice from people who either quit or who didn't even, basically people who quit, they ask different questions, or they have different languages they have different language or vocabulary when it comes to, if I was to come to them and ask a question like, what should you do in this situation? So they can't.
You just gotta know who you did.
Yeah, and
you just gotta know who to talk to.
Yeah, and so
ask questions and
right.
Just be discerned. Just know who you asking questions. You just know what kind of. You just gotta have those. You just gotta know who to ask the question. You can't just ask anybody about this in any situation.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what led us to where we're at today, is having the right people to be around, to break in that mindset of the upbringings that we had to fight through education and through acting, and also getting with other people that is going to help us make ourselves better. And so that's what really, really pushed me to even just start, want to do a podcast, because I understand that people like ourselves who are minority, who wants to understand, like, how can I do better for my family, go through the same struggles that we had upbringing, and maybe have some of the similar fears, maybe spoken or unspoken.
My thing is, I tell everybody, like, you gonna make a mistake. Like, it's just inevitable.
Yeah, and I think what she's speaking to is that most people, when they want to do this, they believe that they can get it right. They can ask us all the questions, and they can be able to avoid making any mistakes at all. And the reality is one of the lessons that my wife is very passionate about telling everybody so how did y'all get to been so many doors, just in so short amount of time? And I think the main thing she always want to point out is just like, you're going to make mistakes. And why do you feel so passionate about that?
Because people think that they can avoid every mistake by asking somebody how they did it, and like, how did you not make the mistake? Which is a good question. You don't really want, if you don't have to go through that mistake, you can avoid a mistake, but at the same time, when you're taking action, you're going to make some type of mistake. It doesn't matter what it is. You cannot avoid every mistake. You can't remember. You can't. My thing is, like, it's a question, like, you can't get all your questions answered. You're going to forget to ask some question. You might not ask a question correctly. Like, so you can't avoid making a mistake, but you can figure it out, like, okay, this is what I did. And you're like, okay, this is what I did. You can ask somebody, like, so what should have I done instead of this? And then the next time you buy another one, then you won't make that same mistake unless you didn't learn from your mistakes, and you did. So my thing is, you just got to learn from it and keep it moving. And that's all I got.
So yeah, just the upbringing, just to do a recap, is... It
ain't easy. It's not going to be easy.
Emphasize.
Like they say, if it was easy, everybody be done. So I'm not saying it's the hardest thing to ever do, but it does take some effort. It does take some work. It does take opening a book sometimes. It does take going to a webinar, going to a conference, learning from people that are making tons and tons of money, and they've done it.
And I think you can attest to this. Hold on. And I think you can attest to this, but a lot of people, if they've seen us to continue to take action, is more willing to talk to us and give us advice. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, no, because I know it's plenty of people that come to me something, yeah, we want to do this. And we'll be like, okay, this is the book we read, and don't ever hear back from them. So my thing is, like, if I tell you, be like, this is what we read, and then they don't want to do it, don't come back and ask me no question, because I get best believe I'm not going to waste my time. You didn't go read the book. You want me to, babe, I'm not finna hold your hand and do everything. And if you can't go and do a simple task of reading a 200-page book, you're not getting my time after that.
Yeah, and so what I've realized is that the people,
If they see you doing it, and people are going to be more apt to help you when you take their advice, put it to use, and keep doing it.
and you have a success story that comes out of it.
Not even that, you just went out and did it, what they asked you to do or what they told you to do, and more people will help you. And like, okay, they're doing it.
But I
they're
think
taking
success
action.
is regardless is like you won or you lost, but you kept moving forward, and they see you constantly moving forward, regardless of all the mistakes you made. Regardless, like even if they never heard of those mistakes, you continue to
take
and
action
succeed forward. And I
get
think
better at what you're doing.
yeah, so succeeding forward is what allows others to just say, okay, you're serious. You're not just just coming to me one time and then. Yeah, you're not coming to me and just say, man, I did this, what you told me to do. And
It ain't working.
Yeah, it ain't working. Like, no, we never, I think I can honestly say, and my wife always gets on me about always saying the word never, but Shania, have you said we've never came to somebody and say, what you told me didn't work?
No, because that's stupid.
Okay, exactly. That's my point. So that's what I'm saying. Like, but I guess the point that I wanted to make with that is just you have to take full responsibility for your future and for the freedom that you want and for for whatever lifestyle you want for yourself and your family. And so for me, I personally,
you gotta work for that lifestyle. Lifestyle is depending on the lifestyle that you want, is not given to you. You gotta work. I had to learn that. You got to work for it. It's not given.
Yeah, so that is the biggest thing that I understood. So I think those are some of the points we're gonna stick with today. What other you want to add?
It's the mindset shift. It is an absolute mindset shift because when you start to get into it, when you start to read those, like when we were reading all those financial books and just. We got Robert Kiyosaki books, like it's a whole nother, it's a whole nother way of thinking. It's not just like, you really got to be like, dang, my whole life I've been thinking this way. Like, it's a whole mind. Like, it's crazy how much you just got to retrain yourself to think in a different kind of way to acquire assets and wealth. Like, especially when you was never taught that, and it's just like, and then you're going by some type of principle, whatever it is, and that mind shift has to go. Even when we were doing Dave Ramsey, like that was a mind shift change because we never budgeted, we never paid ourselves first. That was Dave Ramsey, wasn't it? Pay yourself first. So like me growing up, it's like you pay your bills first because you got to have somewhere to sleep, you got to have water. No, that mindset change was like pay yourself first. That blew my mind. That little thing blew my mind about paying yourself first, and then everything else is. I'm just like, what? It doesn't even make sense. I'm just like, I couldn't even. But we did it, and we did all right, and we got through it. And it was sometimes that we didn't want a budget because it sucked because it's like we got 6-9 months of emergency fund. I could go on so many vacations right now. I can use that money for so many other things. But I'm just like, but what if something comes up? And that's the whole purpose of an emergency fund. But and then even saving for a house. Like, we had to sacrifice. We had to, at one point, we had roommates. You marry and you have another set of married people. You don't ever want to do that. But they helped us. They helped us save. So we had to sacrifice. We didn't go do stuff. We were newly married, no kid. We could have been doing a whole lot of stuff with the amount of money that we were, because we had pretty good jobs. With the amount of money that we were making, we could have did a whole lot of stuff. We could have blew out a whole lot of money, but we chose to stick to old Dave Ramsey, Old Faithful, and then that's how it all started. And then we transitioned to we graduated to good old Robert Kiyosaki.
So. I think to sum it up is I'm grateful for my wife. As you can tell, we have very great conversations and make a lot of great points. And this is generally how our conversation goes, is just recapping, thinking about, hey, we're all brought up in a certain way with how we think about life and how we think about money and how we think about just financially our lives. And then from there, we have to, for another word, we got to confront the beast. You got to confront, like, okay, this is where we're at, and I think this is what I want for us. I want that freedom, health, which is the new. I want the new freedom and health, which is the new wealth, and freedom having choices that I can make, whether I want to spend time with my family and not worry about how to pay not worrying about how to pay for my bills, So just thinking about that, and then too, educating ourselves on that and being around the right people and talking to the right people that's going to help us continue to think about the situations or the challenges we face in a very productive way. So with that, Mrs. Pretty Lady, do you have any other thing that you would like to share on today's podcast?
No.
No. So as she think intensely, remember, if you are someone who want to just really, really, I think, experience how to overcome this mindset, this poverty mindset, it's you understanding you have a limited mindset. And you have that limited mindset is because of part of your upbringing, and then it's two, the education or lack of education you have. And so understanding and self-assessing in both of those areas is going to help you understand, okay, this is the self-talk that I need to be able to excel and move forward. And so we're going to wrap it up. So I appreciate you listening. I thank you for tuning in for another episode of What's Your Self-Talk. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
See ya.